probably going to bring the axis and the
atlas.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the.
And those three.
Right here.
This one's Gavilan.
I'm trying to find it in the back. I found the atlas and the axis.
It might not be in there because it's kind of big, isn't it?
No.
A little bit bigger than
It's
that.
just-
Oh, that one.
It's just, I just gotta find it. It's like, huh?
The one that has that little pointy thing up.
No, that's not. That's not it. It has the dents on the top. Here we go. I just have to look for it. Okay. So, let's get into the 3 types of bones. Okay. All right. Okay. So, starting at the top, we have C1. Okay. What is that? This one is called an atlas. So it articulates directly on the bottom of the skull. I'll show you if you hand me the skull. I'll show you how it articulates. Okay, let's get this back together so I can turn it upside down. Okay, so if you turn this upside down, you take it like so. You articulate it like so. Okay, this holds up the skull, and then this goes underneath it. And what does C2? What's that one called?
The
Axis. And why is it called the axis?
Does it rotate?
What special thing does it allow us to do?
To turn
heads
her
back
head,
and forth,
yeah.
right? Okay. So this is C1 and C2. This distinguishing feature of the axis is this this protrusion. What's that protrusion called? That's called the dens. The dens. Okay. Also distinctive about both of these, and also in the cervical vertebrae, is that we have holes on either side. Anybody know what those holes are called? Transverse foramen. So cervical vertebrae have that special feature. And so what do we think runs through there?
The brainstem.
Separate the stem cells?
The spinal nerves run through there. Okay? So as you can see on C1 and C2, they both have vertebral foramen. Now in C2, you see the beginning of the what? This special feature, spinous process. It's not quite as protruding yet. Okay? Something special happens with the spinous process as we move down the cervical. And how many cervical vertebrae do we have?
12.
Breakfast at 7, lunch at 12, dinner at 5. Okay, so cervical is 7, thoracic is 12, lumbar is 5. Okay, so if you can see here, this is C3. So this is C3, so this would be the next one in line. So what happens to the spinous process when we get to
Splits?
C3? It splits. And what is that called? Anyone?
We didn't have that on any of our labs, so we're not going to have it on the.
Okay, well this little feature is called the bifid, and it's kind of just nice to know. It looks like a fork tongue. So it's split like a V or a fishtail. Okay, so this is called a bifid spinous process. And you can see again we have the transverse foramen, and we have the beginnings of the vertebral foramen. So what runs through this big foramen? The spinal cord. Okay. So this little feature here is called what? This little thing.
Body?
That's called the body. Okay. What goes in between each bodies is the discs, right? Okay. So on the cervical vertebrae, you see the body is smaller, right? The opening, the vertebral opening, is a little bit bigger because it's transitioning from the brainstem to the spinal cord. So it's still a little bit, needs a little room still. A distinguishing feature is it has transverse foramen. And it has the bifid spinous process. It looks like a fork tongue. Okay, so that's cervical. Next we move on to thoracic. Okay, does it have transverse foramen?
No.
No. It has these protrusions on either side. Those protrusions are called transverse processes. Remember I told you anything that sticks out of the process So it has transverse processes. These exist for a couple of different reasons. These exist, number one, for ligament attachment and also for muscle attachment, okay? As you notice, the spinous process of this one's a little different than the cervical, right? It points to what? Down, right? To the floor. And then they have these notches here. These notches allow them to articulate with the next bone underneath. So that's why you have the notches, okay? So now what else do you notice about this opening?
Smaller?
It's a little bit smaller, it's kind of medium size. It's not the largest, it's not the smallest, but it's kind of medium size. So, 2 or 3 distinguishing features of the thoracic, okay? The body is medium sized, the vertebral foramen is medium sized, and it has transverse processes. So, what they generally do on lab practicals is they set them out. Not always this one. And they'll ask you to identify. And so you have to know the distinguishing features. As you notice, in the thoracic, there are no transverse foramens. There's transverse processes. So that's the biggest difference right there. Okay? And how many thoracic vertebrae do we have? 12. Why do you think we have 12 thoracic vertebrae?
So that supports the rib.
Because they articulate with the ribs. So our ribs actually articulate right here. So your rib would come off and kind of do like this. Okay. All right. The next we transition to the bigger of the lumbar.
Lumbar, yeah.
What's the biggest difference you notice is this, right?
It's big, yeah.
So the body is really big. Why do you think the body is big in the lumbar
So
spine?
it supports most of the weight.
Right, it's
and
for
it's-
weight supporting.
Yeah.
It also has transverse, what? Processes. But what do you notice about the vertebral foramen?
Smallest.
It's a little bit smaller.
Isn't it bigger?
Well, it's a little different shaped. This is more of an oval, and this is more round.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But maybe for its size, it's smaller than
Right.
for the whole. So.
It has a spinous process, but it's kind of fat, like a fat or whale tail, okay? And not the other kind of whale tail, by the way. Okay. Again, the 3 distinguishing features that you're going to look for in lumbar, and I'm not going to give you all the details. Like when you go into anatomy, you have to know all the features, so I won't go into that much detail. But you're going to see a bigger body, transverse processes, and kind of a fat spinous process. Okay, so that's yours. And how many of these do we have?
7,
Five.
5 of
Good.
them, yeah.
Okay, so that's your. Yes, there you go. And if you want to pass these around and look, you see how they articulate together? Let's see what
I
it's
saw on a YouTube video that also if you look at it that way, it looks like a hippo.
It does look like a hippo.
And then this one looks like a giraffe.
It does look like a
Oh
giraffe,
my
yeah.
gosh, so cute. I'm just kidding.
So that's how I was like, oh, okay, well that one looks like a giraffe, so that one.
You'd be surprised how many people get cervical and thoracic because there is one cervical vertebrae that it's transitioning to being a thoracic and the spinous process points down. But it's C5.
So yeah, that's how I learned it. I was like, okay, that one looks like a giraffe, and this one looks like a hippo. So
See if I can
that's.
find C5.
That's the axis or atlas.
That one goes with that.
No, this is the address.
Yeah, and then the axis goes with it.
Like that?
I don't know which one is this one.
That's the axis, isn't it?
That's.
Oh no, it isn't. That's the
It
L.
goes on that one.
That's L3, I think, that you have in your hand.
This is the
That you have as L3. Is it
Oh,
L3?
it's the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, this is.
Under L2.
No, no.
So that one goes with that one, with the atlas, with the axis.
Oh, and
This one.
this is the C2 or something like that.
That's C3.
C2.
All right, so let's move on to the
Because of
next
the
thing.
Goes
V.
like that.
The V is L3, that's how you know.
Okay.
And then the other one goes.
Oh, what the heck? So, this is the.
It's C3 one.
I can email this to you. Do you want me to email it? I could try to email it in bits and pieces for you.
It's that one. See, if you look at
Just
the-
will you write your email address on that paper right, or in this,
I don't know,
write it in.
that one is the ones where it has the little holes. You see how it
It
has
was
holes?
on capital.
All the circles have.
Okay, so
We'll
now
stop.
let's talk about